and nobody was helping them. Tell Cheryl what happened, Larry Rogers.
Yeah, one of the young people pulled the fire alarm because they felt she was somewhere in the hotel. They didn't know if she was in the room and someone had abducted her or exactly what had happened. And that's the only thing that really prompted the beginnings of an investigation by the Rosemont Police Department. They finally came out and said, what's really going on here? And that's really what prompted. So a lot of credit has to be given to this family and to these young people, knowing Kenneka and knowing that she would not have left that hotel. If their pleas had only been heard by the hotel staff, this young lady would be alive today.
Well, I'm telling you, it's a sorry day. It is a sad day, Cheryl, when you can't get any help and you have to pull the darn fire alarm to get someone to pay attention to you, trying to say, your daughter is missing and she's somewhere in this hotel. Can you help me find her? They had to pull the fire alarm. Now listen to this timeline, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry Rogers, because you know the timeline better than me. This teen girl was seen leaving the elevator alone, but she had not left alone. She was with her little girlfriends to start with. At 3:20 a.m., somebody, somewhere, had slipped her topiramate, okay? Which is not a street drug, all right? Nobody in her family has ever had topiramate. It's a seizure medication. And she is just struggling to even keep her balance. And you see her. I don't know where the security guards were at the Crown Plaza Hotel, but they sure were not looking at the security bank because she can hardly walk. She's falling into the walls, and this is not from being drunk. She then is spotted somehow down in this maze of a kitchen there beneath the Crown Plaza Hotel, and she gets somehow to a completely abandoned area that has not been locked off for people to come into. Then there's no camera that shows how she got put into that freezer, but we know somewhere something went wrong. Her hair is a mess. There's blood on her foot. Her pants are pulled down. Her shirt is pulled up. Everything is askew. There's no scuff marks, nothing to show she tried to get out. I don't quite understand it, but the whole thing was she spotted at 3:20 a.m. or should have been spotted on the security video. That's what it shows now that we've gotten a chance to look at it. Do you know when they finally told police? They were on the phone with the mom at 4 a.m. We can't find Kenneka. 1 p.m. that day. That almost 12 hours passed.
No, actually, it was more like 21 hours. It was the next morning that they finally located her.
Oh, yeah. It was by the time they found her. She goes missing at 3:20 a.m. It was after 1 a.m. she's found dead. All that time, Cheryl, the mom was begging for help, couldn't get anybody to listen. Let me pause right now in our search for justice. Hope you've got your seatbelts buckled. I want you to hear the dispatch call when Kenneka's dead body was found.
301 here. 301. Everything 10-4? Negative. I have that subject in the kitchen in a freezer. She was frozen solid.
Give it a few hours. Cheryl McCollum, I have never heard of a 911 dispatch going, you know what? She's probably fine. Just give it a couple hours. She's probably with her friends. What?
I've never heard that in my life. And I'm going to tell you again, the person that pulled the fire alarm is a hero.
Who did pull the fire alarm? Larry Rogers Jr.?
I don't have the name of the individual, but it was one of the family or friends that were desperately looking for Kenneka throughout that hotel. And again, that desperation led to them pulling the fire alarm, and finally a response came that really asked them what's going on. And that's what triggered them to begin to look at the video footage. And it shouldn't take that much, Nancy, as you indicated. It shouldn't require a desperate move.
Well, I tell you what, when I went down to that lobby, Larry Rogers Jr., in the hotel in Arizona, I said, my daughter has just gotten on an elevator. I can't find her. I'm looking for her right now. Help me. This is my son. Don't lose him. And I turned around, and they helped. They helped. You know, they held John David, and I went up looking. They sent people looking, and a good Samaritan found her and brought her back. Oh, and by the way, I said and hugged the lady and thanked her, but I never got her name. I never found out who she was. Nothing. The lady that got my little girl, Lucy, and, you know, potentially could have saved her life. I'm just imagining Kenneka staggering around and ending up in that freezer. My EP, executive producer, Alan Duke, joining me. Alan, what do you think?
Of all of the disturbing aspects of this, the thing that bothers me the most is the idea of Kenneka's mom in the hotel shortly after her daughter went into that freezer on the phone with police asking for help at the hotel, asking employees, staff there to help. Yet, when she called 911, she was told, go home, wait for her to come home, because that's what kids do. Call us back maybe in about 3 or 4 hours. Well, those are fatal 3 or 4 hours. And it disturbs me to think what would have happened if that law enforcement agent who answered the 911 call had said, you know what, we're sending an officer down there immediately to search the hotel, and we're going to find your daughter. And maybe they would have found her before she froze to death. We see this too many times in missing person cases where law enforcement doesn't initially treat it as a case. They think it's a voluntary disappearance. They think that this, especially if it's a young person, that they're off partying someplace, or they think that drugs are involved, and they don't want to put their resources into searching for this missing person. And I can tell you, just in this year, while we've been doing this show, there have been several cases where I personally talked to the families and heard their frustration about this. Weeks later, their daughter, their sister, whoever, they were found dead. And police had waited days or weeks before they started investigating. That is the most disturbing thing, and I wish I knew what we could do about it.
Again, Larry Rogers Jr., what was her condition when her body was found in the freezer, Larry?
She was stiff. Rigor mortis had set in. She was frozen. And she was positioned in just the most odd position that you could imagine. It was pretty traumatic for her mom to see those photos. We actually asked the Rosemont Police Department not to make them public because they were so traumatic, and her pleas in that regard were dismissed as well.
You know, when you say she was in this weird position, what position was it?
She was positioned sort of on her left side with her face down toward the ground, and more or less positioned into a corner of the freezer. And this is a small freezer that was about 4 feet by 5 feet in dimension. And it was just a very sad and tragic photograph to see. It must have been terrible for that young lady.
What do you think of that position, Cheryl McCollum? Because I've now discovered, I believe that there is an opening, a release valve within the freezer that she could have gotten out unless she was disabled.
The way she's positioned in that corner, like her face is down literally in the corner. Again, it doesn't look like something she did naturally. And her hair is all in her face. It's not like away from her face where she just got cold and fell over and froze to death. It looked violent, like she was struggling.
I'm looking at the video right now of her walking toward the freezer. Her clothes are in place. Her hair is perfect. She's got on a little jean shirt. Everything's fine. Both shoes on. Everything. She's perfectly in order. None of it makes sense to me, and now it has been decided it's an accident. Now, I'm waiting to hear back from the Crowne Plaza Hotel. I want to hear what they have to say. So far, nothing. But according to her mother, Teresa Martin, she says, quote, "To me, I feel they helped kill my child, the police department, and this hotel." Why is she saying that, Larry Rogers Jr., about the police?
Well, she feels that her pleas for help were ignored from the very beginning. And if they had only just responded to her, they had taken the time to look at the cameras, they had begun to look for her when she first called, we wouldn't be here today. The young lady would be alive, and we wouldn't be here. That's the tragedy of it all.
What now, Larry Rogers Jr.?
Well, what we've done now is we've commissioned a private autopsy to investigate her injuries. We've done a private toxicology testing that we expect to get the results on shortly. We've done a forensic examination of the freezer and are in the process of agreeing to have the doors and framework removed so we can have that tested possibly by an engineer. And then we expect to explore specifically what happened with this missing video footage, again, to try and help this poor mom get to the bottom of what happened to her daughter.
Well, another thing I don't understand, Larry, is Teresa tells me that police tried to arrest her as she tried to search the hotel for her little girl. She's dead. Okay, why police try to arrest her?
That's true. They were more concerned with the fact that people were in the hotel looking for Kenneka than the fact that Kenneka was missing. Again, just a tragic way of addressing a desperate mom in search of her daughter.
Wait, they were more concerned about what?
The police department and the hotel staff was more concerned about they were in the hotel knocking on doors and trying to keep them from knocking on doors than they were about the fact that Kenneka was missing. Rather than focusing on the fact that there was a young 19-year-old girl who had entered that hotel and was missing and couldn't be located, they were more concerned about kicking out her family.
I can't get my head around it, Cheryl McCall.
Again,
can you imagine a cop when I'm running up and down the hall screaming and crying for Lucy, trying to drag me out while she could be dying or molested or being hurt at that very minute, to come and try to arrest the mother? Cheryl, you've got 2 children.
I cannot fathom how they are more concerned with disturbing the peace than they are with somebody dying on their property that doesn't have to. And literally, if they were worried about them running up and down the hall, all they had to do was show them the videotape. That's all they had to do. Get them in an office, show them the tape, let's go find her. Period.
I'm just sick. The witnesses told police that they lost track of Kenneka when she left just for a moment to go fetch her car keys and her cell phone from another room. That never happened. Somehow, everything went sideways. How is the mom, Teresa Martin, doing now, Larry Rogers Jr.? Because when I met with her, she was just, oh my stars. She looked like she was just numb. She could hardly even talk.
Yeah, she's a very strong woman, an amazing woman. She's been just perfect in terms of a client, in terms of her disposition. You know, she did any and everything she could do to try and locate her daughter as quickly as possible. She's hurt. I think she indicated that to you herself, Nancy. She's hurt by the fact that her pleas were ignored, and those pleas really would have likely made a difference in whether her daughter was alive today.
With me is Larry Rogers Jr., a veteran trial lawyer, the lawyer for Kenneka's family, and my friend and longtime colleague, Cheryl McCollum, director of the Cold Case Institute, and Alan Duke, of course, joining me from LA. Our search for justice is not over. Nancy Grace, Crime Stories, signing off. Goodbye, friend.